She said it like it was nothing. "Oh, I gave your ticket to Caleb." Not I asked, not can we talk about it, just I gave it away, like I was an extra seat in my own life. Before we dive in, if you're into full Reddit-style relationship stories with betrayal, financial manipulation, and the kind of quiet revenge that leaves receipts, make sure you subscribe to channel and hit like button. We're pushing for our first 100 subscribers, and it genuinely helps the channel grow. All right, here's the story. I'm Ethan, 30M. This happened earlier this year with my now ex, Sophie, 27F. We were together a little over 2 years. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment in the city, nothing fancy, but it was clean, safe, close to my office, and I paid for most of it. Actually, I paid for almost everything. Sophie worked on and off in creative marketing, jobs that never seemed to last more than a few months. There was always a reason: bad manager, toxic workplace. They didn't respect her. They didn't get her vision. I believed her at first because I loved her and I wanted to be supportive. Then her best friend, Caleb, entered the picture in a way that should have set off alarms earlier. Caleb was 29M, and he was one of those guys who is always about to do something big, about to start a business, about to drop an album, about to get a high-paying contract, about to move to LA, about to blow up. But somehow, he was never actually doing it. He was just around, always on Sophie's phone, always in our apartment, always eating our food, always sitting on my couch like it was his. Sophie would say things like, "Caleb's going through a rough time, Ethan. He needs support." And I'd nod because I thought that's what good partners do. You support the people your partner loves. Here's the part that makes me feel stupid now. At some point, support became me paying for a third adult in my home. He'd come over and stay late and then stay overnight because it's too late to drive. Then it turned into him crashing on our couch 2 nights a week, then 3. Then he had a toothbrush in our bathroom. Then he had his own mug. Then his laundry started appearing in our hamper like a magic trick. And every time I tried to bring it up, Sophie would shut it down fast. "Don't be like that," she'd say. "Caleb is like family." It's amazing how quickly, like family, becomes an excuse to ignore boundaries. Now the concert. This concert was a big deal to me, and not because I'm some obsessive fan. It was because it was the one thing I'd been looking forward to for months, something that felt like a reward after carrying the weight of everything. I'm a software engineer. I work long hours. I'm not out here living some glamorous life. My fun is simple. I work, I go to the gym, I come home, I relax. I don't blow money on random stuff. But this was my favorite band, the kind of band you listened to as a teenager and never stopped listening to. They were doing a reunion tour, and tickets sold out fast. I managed to get 2 decent tickets during presale, not VIP or anything, but good seats. And I was excited. I told Sophie about it like a kid. "Friday night," I said, grinning. "Just you and me, no phones, no drama. We go out, we actually do something fun." Sophie smiled and kissed me and said, "That sounds amazing." And I believed her. The week before the concert, Sophie started acting weird. Not distant exactly, but energized in a specific way that made me feel like I wasn't the source of it. She was texting constantly, laughing at her phone, tilting the screen away when I walked by. One night I came out of the shower and heard her on speakerphone with Caleb. She was laughing and said, "Stop, you're literally my favorite person." I didn't think much of it at first. People say stuff like that, but then I heard Caleb say, "So you're bringing me, right?" And Sophie, without hesitation, said, "Obviously." I stood there with a towel around my waist, just staring at the wall. Because there was only one bringing in her world that week. The concert. I walked into the living room, and Sophie looked up with this guilty half-smile like she'd been caught doing something small, like eating the last cookie. "Oh," she said, casual, "you're done." I didn't match her tone. "What did you just say to Caleb?" I asked. She blinked. "Nothing, we were just talking." "No," I said, "I heard you. He asked if you're bringing him. Bringing him where?" Sophie exhaled like I was inconveniencing her. "Ethan," she said slowly, like I was a child, "he really wants to go." My stomach tightened. "So do we. Those are our tickets." She waved a hand. "I know, but you don't even get excited about stuff like this. Caleb is a real fan." That line hit me in a place I didn't expect. I stared at her. "I bought the tickets." She shrugged, and this is the moment that changed everything. Oh, I gave your ticket to Caleb. My brain didn't immediately process it. It felt like when you hear something so disrespectful, it doesn't even make sense at first. You what? I said. Sophie kept going, like she was explaining something reasonable. He's been having a hard time. He needed something to look forward to, and honestly, it'll be more fun with him there. You're not exactly concert energy. I could actually feel my face get hot. So I'm staying home, I said, while you and your best friend go to a concert I paid for, that I bought for us. Sophie rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic, she said. It's not that deep. Not that deep. I swallowed. Do you hear yourself? She crossed her arms. Caleb already told people he's going. I'm not going to embarrass him. I just stood there in shock, because it wasn't just the ticket, it was the logic. My feelings didn't matter. My effort didn't matter. The fact I paid for almost everything didn't matter. What mattered was Caleb not being embarrassed. I tried one more time. Sophie, I said, forcing calm into my voice, that was not your ticket to give away. That's wildly disrespectful. She laughed, actually laughed. Oh my God, she said, you're acting like I cheated. And Caleb, still on the phone, made this little amused sound like I was entertainment. That was the moment I realized something simple and brutal. I wasn't her partner. I was her sponsor. I didn't yell, I didn't slam doors, I didn't threaten anyone. I just nodded once slowly, like I'd finally understood what I was looking at. Okay, I said, got it. Sophie's expression changed slightly. What does that mean? She asked. Nothing, I said, and walked into the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands for a long time. My heart was pounding, but my mind went strangely quiet. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. I thought back through the last year, the time Sophie forgot her wallet when we went out, the time she asked me to cover just this one thing and it became normal, the time I paid her car insurance because she couldn't deal with stress, the time Caleb borrowed money for gas and never paid it back, the groceries disappearing faster than they should, the utilities going up, the way my apartment didn't feel like mine anymore. And now the concert, the one thing I was excited for. And she laughed. That night Sophie acted like nothing happened, like it was already settled. She ordered takeout on my card without asking. She sat on my couch with Caleb beside her, scrolling through outfits and making jokes about how I'd be so bored at the concert anyway. I watched them from the kitchen, and I felt something I hadn't felt before. Not anger. Clarity. Because I finally accepted a truth I'd been avoiding. If I stayed, this would be my life, forever. Paying for the privilege of being disrespected. So I made a decision, quietly, carefully, like you do when you're dealing with someone who will twist everything into drama. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to exit. And I was going to do it in a way that didn't give them a chance to sabotage it. Here's the mid-story hook, the part where my okay turned into a plan. The next morning, Sophie left to run errands, which usually meant getting coffee with Caleb and wandering around pretending it was productive. The moment the door closed, I opened my laptop and pulled up my lease portal. The lease was in my name. Sophie wasn't on it. She moved in later, temporarily, while she got her career stable. 2 years later, she was still temporarily there. Our lease was month to month after the first year. That meant, legally, I could terminate with proper notice. I read the agreement twice to make sure. 30 days notice, a small termination fee if we wanted to end sooner, but it was doable. So I did it. I submitted notice to end the lease. Then I called the leasing office to confirm. I kept my voice calm, normal. Yes, I said, I'm moving out. I'll be out by the end of the month. I'll schedule final walkthrough. Then I started planning the move. Not a dramatic, chaotic move, a clean one. I booked movers for Friday evening, same day as the concert, because I knew Sophie and Caleb would be out for hours. I chose a time that gave me a window. I paid extra for speed. I booked a storage unit across town and a short-term furnished studio for myself for the first month while I looked for a more permanent place. Then I made lists. What was mine? Couch, TV, coffee table, bed, dresser, desk, kitchen appliances, plates, cookware, almost everything. Sophie had her clothes, her makeup, some personal items, a few decorations she'd bought. Caleb had nothing because he didn't pay for anything. I wasn't going to steal her stuff. That's not the kind of person I am. I wanted out, not a criminal charge. So I bought moving boxes and packed Sophie's personal belongings neatly. Clothes folded, makeup in one box, shoes in another, documents separated. I wrote an inventory list like I was handling evidence, not a breakup. Then I did something that I'm still proud of because it kept me from being the villain in anyone's story. I prepaid 1 month of a small storage unit in Sophie's name and put her boxes there, with a key and address ready. Because I knew how this would go. If I left her stuff in the apartment and the lease ended, she'd claim I threw her out. If I took her stuff, she'd claim I stole it. If I asked her to coordinate, she'd delay and create drama. So I made it clean. Everything she owned was safe, accounted for, and accessible. Just not in my home. When Sophie came back later that day, she was bubbly again. She didn't mention the ticket. She didn't apologize. She just acted like I'd gotten over it. That's the thing about people who use you. They assume your silence means compliance. She said, "So you're okay now, right? I knew you'd chill." I looked up from my laptop and said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And she smiled, satisfied, like she'd trained me. The next 2 days were surreal. I played normal. I went to work. I came home. I didn't pick fights. I didn't confront her. I didn't beg. I just prepared. Friday arrived. Sophie spent the whole day getting ready like it was prom. Hair, makeup, outfit. Caleb came over early, wearing a jacket he couldn't afford, acting like he was the main character. They were buzzing with excitement, hyping each other up, taking selfies in my living room with my furniture, with my TV in the background, with my apartment as their stage. At one point, Sophie looked at me and said, grinning, "Aren't you jealous?" Caleb smirked too, like he expected me to be bitter. I didn't give them that. I just said, "Have fun." Sophie paused, slightly suspicious. "You're being weird." I smiled. "I'm not. Go enjoy your night." Then they left. The door closed. The apartment went silent. And I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. The movers arrived 20 minutes later. 3 guys, efficient, no questions, just doing their job. I showed them what was going with me. And in under 2 hours, my apartment transformed. The couch that Sophie and Caleb lounged on, gone. The TV they watched, gone. The coffee maker Sophie used every morning, gone. The bed she slept in, gone. The kitchen looked stripped because nearly everything belonged to me. The apartment echoed when you spoke. It didn't look like a home anymore. It looked like what it really was, a temporary place I'd been paying for while other people played house. When we loaded the truck, I walked through one last time and made sure Sophie's boxes weren't there. I didn't want a single thing she could claim I'd taken. Then I put my note on the counter. It was short, calm, no insults, no long emotional essay. It said, "Sophie, I'm ending the lease and moving out. I didn't sign up to fund a relationship where I'm disrespected and replaced. Your personal belongings are safely stored at the unit listed below. The first month is paid. Do not contact me unless it's about something legal or urgent. The ticket wasn't the problem. It was the final proof. Ethan." I left the storage address and unit number. I left the key taped to the note. Then I walked out. No screaming, no dramatic exit. Just gone. I drove to my new studio, dropped my things, took a shower, and sat on the edge of the bed staring at the wall. I expected to feel sad. I expected to feel sick. But mostly I felt relief. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for a long time and finally put it down. I didn't block Sophie yet. I wanted a record of whatever she sent. I knew there would be messages. And sure enough, my phone started lighting up around midnight. At first it was confusion. "Ethan, where are you? What is this? Are you serious right now?" Then anger. "You're a psycho. You can't just do that. You embarrassed me in front of Caleb. Everyone saw we came back and the apartment was empty." Then the begging. "Please answer. I didn't mean it. Caleb made it sound like you didn't care. I thought it wasn't a big deal. Can we talk?" Then back to anger when I didn't respond. You're pathetic, you'll regret this. You think you're so mature, but you're just running away. I didn't respond to any of it. Because every message was the same pattern I'd lived with for months. She didn't feel sorry. She felt inconvenienced. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered and it was Diane, Sophie's mom. Just kidding, Sophie didn't have a Diane, but she might as well have, because what happened was the same type of behavior. It was Caleb. He said, laughing like this was a joke, "Bro, what the hell?" I stayed calm, "Don't call me." Caleb scoffed, "So you're really just leaving her like that, after everything?" After everything. The audacity of a guy who lived off my generosity, trying to shame me. I said, "Caleb, you took my ticket, you took my space, you took my money, you don't get to take my peace too." He started to talk over me, and I hung up. Then I blocked him. Sophie tried a different tactic. She showed up at my office. I told security not to let her in if she ever came. I didn't think I'd need it that soon, but there she was, crying in the lobby like a movie scene, telling anyone who would listen that I abandoned her. My coworker texted me, "Your ex is downstairs." I didn't go down. I called security and asked them to escort her out. Sophie texted me 2 minutes later. "You had security remove me. You're cruel." Cruel. Not the word I'd use for a woman who laughed while giving away my concert ticket to the freeloader I was paying to feed. But sure. Cruel. In the weeks that followed, Sophie's world collapsed in a way that I didn't cause. I just stopped preventing it. Because the truth is, my money had been holding up the entire illusion. Without me paying rent, Sophie couldn't afford the apartment. She tried to convince the leasing office she could take over the lease, but she wasn't on it, and she didn't have the income to qualify. She tried to move in with Caleb. Caleb suddenly had excuses. "I have roommates, my place is too small, my landlord is strict." Funny how best friend loyalty changes when rent is due. So Sophie ended up bouncing between friends' couches for a while. She posted vague, dramatic stuff on social media about healing from narcissistic abuse and learning my worth. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself publicly. The people who knew me knew. And here's the part that gets even more satisfying, not because I wanted revenge, but because reality is undefeated. Caleb, the idol Sophie chose over me, was not the hero she built in her head. He wasn't loyal. He wasn't stable. He wasn't even grateful. Without my apartment as a base, without my groceries, without my utilities, Caleb drifted away. He stopped texting Sophie as much. He was busy. He was going through something. Sophie later admitted through a mutual friend that she realized the concert night wasn't some magical moment. It wasn't romance. It wasn't energy. It was just two people using someone else's resources and calling it friendship. And once the resources were gone, the friendship cooled fast. Sophie hit me up again about 2 months later with a longer message. It started with, "I've been doing a lot of reflecting." I almost laughed. Because reflecting always comes after consequences. She apologized, sort of. She said she took me for granted. She said she didn't realize how much I did. She said Caleb influenced her and she got swept up in bad energy. Then she ended it with, "I think we could rebuild if you're willing." Rebuild. Like I was a damaged house she could move back into once she missed the comfort. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded it to my therapist, and we laughed about it in session. Because yes, I got a therapist. Not because Sophie broke me, but because I realized I had a pattern. I stayed too long. I overgave. I tried to fix people who didn't want to fix themselves. And I didn't want to repeat that. Now my life after. It didn't become perfect overnight. I'm not going to pretend it was some movie montage where I instantly became a billionaire with abs. The first month was strange, quiet. My studio apartment felt small and empty. Some nights I stared at the ceiling and felt the absence of routine. But the difference was, I was lonely in a peaceful way, not lonely in a draining way. I started sleeping better. I started eating better. I started going to the gym consistently. I stopped getting that tight feeling in my chest every time my phone buzzed. And work took off. I'd been holding myself back in my career because I was always managing Sophie's chaos. I was always handling emergencies, covering rent, solving her problems, hosting her friend, keeping things stable. With that weight gone, I had focus again. I applied for a senior role I'd been hesitant about. I got it. It came with a raise big enough that I could have comfortably supported Sophie forever if I wanted. But I didn't want. Because I finally understood something important. Money doesn't make a relationship safe. Respect does. A few months later, I met someone new. Her name was Maya. She was 29. She had her own career, her own apartment, her own life. On our first date, she offered to split the check without even making it a moment. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She listened when I spoke. She asked questions. She didn't treat my kindness like a vending machine. And the craziest part. Being with someone emotionally healthy feels almost boring at first because you're not constantly bracing for the next problem. But then you realize that boring feeling is peace. Maya and I took things slow. We communicated. We respected boundaries. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was building with someone, not carrying someone. Meanwhile, Sophie's life got harder. She tried to reset with a new job, but she kept quitting because she wasn't used to showing up consistently. She moved back with her mom for a while. She posted motivational quotes while borrowing money from friends. And Caleb drifted to the next person willing to fund his dream. Sophie found out he'd been talking to multiple women the whole time, asking for support, making promises, playing the same game. Her idol wasn't an idol. He was just a user with charisma. And once she saw that, she spiraled. She tried to reach out to me again around the holidays. This time it was short. I miss you. You were the only stable thing in my life. That line almost made me sad. Almost. But then I remembered her laughs. And I remembered my tickets. And I remembered my couch being treated like a free lounge for the guy she prioritized over me. So I didn't respond. Because she didn't miss me. She missed the stability I provided. And those aren't the same thing. Today, I'm in a better apartment, still in the city, but in a neighborhood I actually like. I'm doing well financially. I'm saving. I'm traveling. I'm with someone who doesn't test my self-respect just to see how much I'll tolerate. And I learned something that I wish I'd learned earlier. You don't need closure from someone who disrespected you. Sometimes the closure is leaving. Sometimes the closure is silence. Sometimes the closure is an empty apartment and a note that simply says, "You don't get to use me anymore." Now I want to ask you, because this is where people always disagree. If you were in my situation, would you have confronted Sophie harder, or would you have done the same quiet exit? Was I wrong for ending the lease and moving out without warning, even though she wasn't on the lease and I made sure her belongings were safe? And what's the bigger betrayal in your opinion, the concert ticket, or the fact she let her best friend live off me and laughed when I tried to set boundaries? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I genuinely read them. And if you want more stories like this, betrayal, financial manipulation, quiet revenge, and people finally choosing self-respect, subscribe to Reddit Story Vault and hit like.